Well, maybe this is a good time to thank our panelists for your wonderful contributions and the relay that you've added to the larger project, Leaning Out of Windows. And I think what we'd like to do now is see if there are any specific ideas that the artists would like to share that are here in the audience. So these are some questions we were thinking about. How did the process inspire your working methods? What did you learn about the creative process? Did metaphor play a role in your process? Do the artists need to understand the physics topic? So I'm just wondering if there's anybody here who was involved in the project that would like to share their experience.
In my interaction with physicists, one question, I'm always interested in the politics behind the investment. And I felt a great sense of responsibility in broaching the subject. Antimatter seems like a really important thing to have discovered and to create. So my question was why, and what's at stake, and you're getting all this money for a reason. And of course, the discovery of it itself has great social implications in terms of our dependence on fossil fuels and the state of the planet. So on the one hand, I saw in being able to harness this thing that you can barely find, we could solve a lot of our problems in terms of energy, in terms of how many humans are here. I could say a lot about that in itself. On the other hand, we know about the Manhattan Project, and we know about 1 gram of antimatter could destroy a lot on the planet. So those things were foremost in my mind. That's one thing. There are so many aspects of related to collaboration with physicists, responding to Giorgio's, just across media. I remember just feeling almost responding to a musician, an experimental musician, who feels so strongly about what he's doing, and then not really being able to understand that, and just being really anxious about Giorgio's project and how he's trying to. He's working in a very abstract medium that isn't necessarily perceivable. So my tendency was to look at the configuration and to think about the cosmos and how he was trying to materialize a sound that was out of our frequency. So that had its effect on how to visualize things. But also a really huge leap in terms of a transformative translation across media. And then I'm thinking about art history constantly. So how to think about art historical precedents to what I'm trying to do, which led me to my obsession with emblems and 17th century alchemy. And so that came into it. It kind of exploded. And so the reason why there's so many paintings, because some people were like, oh, that's great. Other people were like, there's so many paintings. And then I thought, yeah, I know. It's kind of too much. And then that creates a lot of anxiety too. Like, oh yeah, you just used to be materials. And then I'm just over too maximalist, and what does that mean? And I'm always very admiring of minimalists. I can't do it, but then I realized that what it was a feeling of inadequacy. So to start with something and then realize it falls short. And so what do you do then? You go to the next thing, and then it created this chain reaction within my studio, which is, and a way of dealing with that anxiety is also just to throw the materials down, smush it, say this is surrealism, and then it comes up with fractals, and it comes up with, and so the materials themselves created this scientific discovery in what the materials did. So that's my 2 bits. I can go on.
So I want to read actually a quote from Mark Scott, who I thought I saw. Is he still here? So
He was your physicist.
He was my physicist, yes. He's Mark Scott. He wrote to me, "We study this phenomenon using both neutrinos, matter, and antineutrinos, antimatter, and are looking to see if matter oscillates with a different frequency to antimatter. If true, this violates one of the symmetries of nature, time reversal symmetry, and could explain why we live in a matter-dominated universe." So when he wrote this, I was like, it kind of blew my mind. First of all, that anyone could actually sort of, without irony, say it could explain why we live in a matter-dominated universe. And I realized that, like, again, this idea of language, how you use language within the science community is so different than how we use, maybe in our very, post-millennial, cynical art world. Like, just to think about that I could think about how we live in a matter-dominated universe felt overwhelming and scary. And then we had that 3-hour lecture on antimatter. I was like, oh, God. Thought I left this in high school. So that kind of, once that, kind of getting past that overwhelm and thinking about the concepts, and then, for me, in a very physical way of trying to physicalize it or simplify it and put it into these, yes, I made the film with the dog, and, I felt like I needed humor to kind of get in, or to give myself permission to get into this place. And then to think, oh, well, cinema, and I can think of time, and that's familiar, and these tropes within 60mm film, and forward and backward, and layering, and, then there was an entry point. And again, it became very material, like, okay, I'm going to shoot these things, and I'm just messing around in the studio, and the dog is really annoying, and whatever. But it was sort of like to have these materials, and then to be able to play with this within the editing. And also to give myself permission to not try to really make it right. Like, it was like, okay, well, I'm just swimming around it. I'm going to try and get to something. And this idea of, like, flipping things and mirroring, this idea of mirroring was very potent for me, coming from a dance background, and all the political meanings within that as a female artist. And then kind of to give yourself permission to go into that place was so awesome. So it kind of like, and then to see everybody else's work, and was very interested to see the kind of the stream and what people were doing, and then also to be like, okay, I can't pay attention to that, they're doing their thing, and that's cool. But it was really a really fantastic process. Thanks.
So we do have some questions for physicists who are participating in this. And so those are, what comes up for you in your first encounter with the whole topic of artworks? Do physicists need to understand the artwork? What did you learn from your interactions with artists? And did their artwork offer another perspective on antimatter?
Yeah, I'd like to say that at one level this is a diplomatic exercise. Okay, it was because, let's not kid ourselves. Out there in the world, artists think scientists are at best, geeks, and more likely the destroyers of the world. And of course, scientists tend out there in the world to have a similar or flipped version of what artists are all about. And so the very act of putting the two together like this is like trying to negotiate peace in the Mideast. That took a lot of guts on the part of the people that organized this, and I'm really proud of you. Then when the artists and the physicists came together, there was this question of engagement, right? Because neither one of us had really a clue what the other was up to, and it was scary, and it was confusing, and the question we most often, I think, ask ourselves is, what are we supposed to do? And at some point, the cognitive dissonance got deep enough that either you bailed or you engaged. And the engagement involved finding the intersections of the way that we think and the way that you think, in a way that could produce something. And the desire to produce something is just a desire to produce something. I mean, it's not very complicated. Okay? And when commitment was made, when the instances where the commitment was made, it was very clear that everybody was really having a good time. And to some extent, I think that the key to this whole thing is it has to be fun, right? Because it's going to be scary. If you're engaged at all, it's going to be frightening to be out of your depth, out of your natural medium. And so, if you do make that commitment, it's either going to be fun or it's going to remain frightening and then it won't work. So I think that you really need to put more emphasis on the fun part.
We did have a fun night.